Joining me, Jack Burkman, Republican strategist, K Street lobbyist, and host of Behind the Curtain, Saturday mornings at 10 on Newsmax TV. Also, Richard Fowler, Democratic strategist and host of the nationally syndicated Richard Fowler Show. Download his podcast at fowlershow.com. The country paid tribute this week to Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. The staunch conservative and court's longest-serving justice was found dead last Saturday. Political jousting over his replacement began immediately.
The Constitution is pretty clear about what is supposed to happen now. When there is a vacancy on the Supreme Court, the President of the United States is to nominate someone. The Senate is to consider that nomination, and either they disapprove of that nominee or that nominee is elevated to the Supreme Court. Historically, this has not been viewed as a question.
Some Republicans disagree with that assessment. They want the next administration to decide the next Supreme Court nominee. Jack, the Constitution's pretty clear on this issue. What's the GOP's play?
Well, Mitch McConnell knows that if he even so much as holds hearings, the conservatives would toss him out and they'd make someone like Ted Cruz, assuming he's not the nominee or the next president, the new majority leader. A conservative would be quickly brought in. No one's going to lose control. No one would allow McConnell to jeopardize control of the Supreme Court in an election year. Now, in fairness to the president, if you criticize and just look critically at his statement, I'm not sure there's even time. Even if they began right now, assuming Congress in a big election year would adjourn in September, I don't even know if there's time to consider a Supreme Court nominee. The president said he needs about a month to get one there. I mean, the president wants the Congress to consider the Supreme Court nominee. He also wants them to do the 7 other things he wants them to do in the State of the Union. I don't know if there's even time.
Richard, how would you advise President Obama? Should he nominate a centrist to win bipartisan support or a leftist to fire up the Democratic base?
Well, I think what this president's going to have to do is he's first going to have a conversation with Chuck Grassley, the chair of the Judiciary Committee on the Senate side, just like Ronald Reagan had a conversation with Joe Biden, and really figure out what are the candidates they can both agree on. A couple examples. One is Loretta Lynch. It's very agreeable. She just passed through the Senate as the Attorney General, and she'd be a great pick for the Supreme Court, right? And the next thing they have to do is he's really going to have to work on making sure the Republicans give him a fair shot. Now, I agree with Jack a little bit that this calendar is going to be tight, but if Republicans are willing to get this done and the Senate is willing to do their job, we can actually get this done, right? If the president has 30 days to make a pick, that puts us into April.
Why not let,
and then I think we'll have one by June.
Why not let the people decide?
The people have already decided. They elected President Obama twice overwhelmingly.
You're in a major election year. Let's put it all up on the ballot in November.
The people have already decided.
The next election will decide control of the Supreme Court. I think it's clear.
I don't think it's clear at all, Morris. I mean, well, Jack's position is not clear at all. The Constitution is what's very clear. The job of the president is to pick justices of the Supreme Court. It's the job of the Senate to advise the consent. The president has committed to doing his job. Now the Senate needs to commit to do their job.
He nominates Ted Cruz. Or he nominates Hillary Clinton and has Joe Biden run for president. Things are so crazy, anything could happen. Before we head to the campaign trail, let's take a bite out of Apple. The world's second most valuable company plans to defy a court order forcing them to hack into an iPhone in a terrorism case. This has been brewing for months and pits digital privacy rights against national security concerns.
Once you have a backdoor key, it doesn't know whether the person using it is a good guy or a bad guy or not. So you end up undermining the security of all of the rest of us.
While so much of the attention has been focused appropriately and of necessity on the terrorism aspects of this, the impact on the day-to-day lives of Americans, on their safety and our ability to solve and prevent crime is of even more significance, I would argue.
Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, and Marco Rubio sided with the FBI. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders refused to pick a side. Who made the right decision, Jack?
I think Richard and I may have a bit of a role reversal on this. The libertarian side comes out on this for me, Morris. I think I'm on the side of Apple. The country is getting into too much big government. You have to see this against the backdrop of the NSA listening to hundreds of millions of phone calls. We've got some kind of a Hitler-esque government here. It's like Big Stalin looking down at everybody. The time has come to change this. I'm with Apple 100%.
Richard, even if we give them the code, the government gets hacked successfully so often that the bad guys are going to have it in an instant.
That's exactly right, Morris. And this is one of these things where I think we should go back in history and take a look, right? If you think about when we passed the Patriot Act in this country right after 9/11, there was a lot of people, a lot of members of Congress, a lot of experts that said this is a slippery slope. Morris, we are on the slope and we are slipping. This is exactly what happened.
Yeah, I agree. We have agreement. I think Richard's right on. You know, I was one of the ones, I think I made a mistake on the Patriot Act. I was one of the ones that was raw backing Bush and backing Cheney, and I went around, I actually helped Dick Cheney in the Senate get this passed, but I think it was the wrong thing to do. Richard's right on. There is a slippery slope. It's very dangerous. But I would say, Richard, you have to accept the reality. Your president, Mr. Obama, is the one that took this to the moon he's the one that accelerated NSA listening to our phone calls.
Wait a minute. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the White House has been perfect on surveillance, right? But the only reason why this door was even cracked was because of the expansive power that was created when we created the Department of Homeland Security and the Patriot Act. What this president has tried to do is keep our country safe with the tools that were created and established by George W. Bush and Dick Cheney.
All right, let's move on to the dust-up involving the Vatican. A papal spokesman claims Pope Francis was not targeting Donald Trump when he said this on a flight back from Mexico.
A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be located, and not building bridges, is not a Christian. This is not in the gospel. As far as what you said about whether I would advise to vote or not vote, I am not going to get involved in that. I say only that this man is not a Christian if he has said things like that.
Well, Trump, who has repeatedly called for a wall to divide the United States and Mexico, called those comments disgraceful.
For a religious leader to question a person's faith is disgraceful. I'm proud to be a Christian, and as president, I will not allow Christianity to be consistently attacked and weakened, unlike what is happening now with our current president.
Trump says the Mexican government is using Pope Francis as a pawn. Richard, what do you think?
Well, here's my thing. Before we even get to the Pope and talking about the Pope, this whole idea, you hear it a lot from Ted Cruz, you hear it from Donald Trump, Christianity's under assault, and honestly, Morris, I'm trying to figure out who's assaulting Christianity, when did it happen, and what are the implications?
The American left.
Because as far as I know,
the American left.
There's a church, my church is still open, Jack's church is still open.
You can't say Merry Christmas. You can't say Merry Christmas.
Well,
it's pretty obvious that ISIS wants to chop off the heads.
To get us back to the issue, this will help. Let's go and delve into the politics of this. First of all, Trump is right on. The Pope is very ill-advised to wade into American politics. I'm surprised he doesn't have better advisors than that in the Vatican. You should never do something like this. Now, this will help Trump in the primaries because most of the evangelicals in the South don't like Catholicism. They feel that Catholicism is materialistic, et cetera, et cetera. Now,
so wait a minute. Can I just get clarity on this? So Catholicism is not evangelical Christianity.
Well, doing the politics first. It could hurt him in the general because there are a lot of Catholics in the Northeast. This could hurt Trump a lot. Help him in the primaries, hurt him in the general.
Yeah, I mean, Richard, you can't ask for better timing. You've got Obama saying, oh, he's not going to be president. You've got the Pope picking a fight. What great timing for Trump. This is reality TV, real time.
No, I agree there. I do believe that, every time any of these, whether it be the Pope, whether it be the president, whether it be Rosie O'Donnell, anybody who says anything about Donald Trump only gives him momentum. And I think all the Republican strategists were absolutely, positively wrong about Donald Trump. They were like, oh, he's going to disappear. Oh, he's going to fall out. What the Republican Party is experiencing is what I call the Donald Trump effect. He is unbeatable. Everything you throw at him makes him stronger. He's like Popeye the Sailor Man. And he's managed to succumb all the other candidates in the polls. And the Republicans have a big problem on their hands because the establishment can't wrangle him in. Neither can the Tea Party.
I would add one thing. I agree with the last part of what Richard said. He's right on the money. We have a lot of agreement today. I would just say for Trump, his basic strategy, one of the main tenets of his strategy since he got into this, Morris, is that of what I call preemption. He wants to just get out there and control the media space such that all of the issues just come back to him. There's no other oxygen in the media world for anybody else, and it's working.
I know. All right. Meanwhile, he leads the GOP field in the critical state of South Carolina. A top tier appears to be emerging. Trump, Cruz, and Rubio, who picked up a key endorsement from South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. Any predictions here, Jack?
Well, Nikki Haley's a moderate. I don't think there's any, obviously, she would endorse Rubio. He's the moderate in the race. She would endorse him. No surprise there. It looks like Trump's going to win. Looks like tomorrow he'll win South Carolina without much of a shot. The polls have tightened just a bit. The real issue, though, What's hurting Rubio most of all is the spread field. The fact that you still have Bush and Kasich in the race divides the vote. If this were just the three of them, I think Rubio might have a chance to overtake Trump, but he can't with the spread field. The problem, Morris, is when you come to March 14th, after that all the GOP primaries are winner take all, it's going to be real hard to stop train Trump.
All right, Richard, on the left, Hillary Clinton keeps picking up superdelegates. Despite her increasingly competitive race with Bernie Sanders, she has 89 delegates to Sanders' 11. Clinton also picked up a key endorsement in South Carolina from Representative Jim Clyburn, but polls show Sanders has pulled even in Nevada. But does it matter at this point, Richard?
Well, it does matter, and I wrote about this in a recent piece in Ebony Magazine and Ebony.com, where I talk about how both candidates are really trying to figure out how to court the African-American vote. Hillary's strategy is a more traditional approach, where she's going to go to big endorsements, whether it be from the Congressional Black Caucus, folks like Jim Clyburn, big mega churches sort of pushing out the members to vote for her. And Bernie Sanders is taking the untraditional way of depending upon youth voters, young people, and new voters to vote for him in record numbers.
Sounds familiar to me.
And that is a very familiar strategy, because we saw the same strategy under Barack Obama. Now, Hillary Clinton's, what she's going to have to do to lock up this nomination is she's really going to start having a real conversation with the American people, a real conversation with youth voters, and she's got to loosen up a little bit. What benefits Bernie Sanders here in some of these races is that he's really working on the margins, and he's really working on sort of coalescing or building his coalition. This is going to be a long one, no question about it.
Do we realize, though, that Hillary is stealing this from Bernie Sanders because she's getting these super delegates, all these dozens and dozens of people that most of the public that they don't know about, but never mind the popular vote, Hillary's working the Clinton machine.
Well, yeah, it's rigged. The Democratic system, they have more of these. They have more of these super delegates. They rig it. Ironically, the super delegates were designed to help women and minorities. They were designed to help the underdogs. Now the Clintons have so rigged the system that they help the establishment. The Clintons are the establishment.
This is where I completely disagree. If you look at, no, that's not true at all. If you look at Democratic Party history, right, and you look at what President Obama was able to do. President Obama did actually really well among superdelegates. Some superdelegates changed who they were committed to later on in the primary because of how well he did. So,
you're making my point,
don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
Point.
I think there are problems with the Democratic system, just like there are problems with the Republican system. But what this race shows is that this is not a coronation. Jack and other folks liked him from the beginning of this. Said, "Oh, this is going to be a Hillary Clinton coronation.
Why is it?
She's going to win
okay,
no
but
matter
why is
what."
It that
and
the
clearly
Democratic
there's a
Party,
race here.
You're supposed to be the left of center party. Why is it that the Democratic Party has to rely on undemocratic and anti-democratic measures like super delegates when the right of center party, the Republicans, use about 1/10 as many? I don't understand that.
Like I said, both party systems are in need of repair. The Republican primary calendar is a hot mess, just to be honest, right? But either way, what you see here is Jack and all the other Republicans are wrong. There's not a Hillary Clinton coronation. She's fighting for every single solitary vote, as she should.
All right, before we go, a joke from Hillary Clinton.
One of my favorite political ads of all time was a radio ad in rural Arkansas where the announcer said, "Wouldn't it be great if somebody running for office said something, we could have an immediate reaction as to whether it was true or not? Well, we've trained this dog, and the dog, if it's not true, he's going to bark." And then the dog was barking on the radio. And so, people were like barking at each other for days after that. I'm trying to figure out how we can do that with the Republicans. We need to get that dog and follow them around, and every time they say these things, like, the Great Recession was caused by too much regulation,
Well, this went viral. Trump mocked Clinton for it. Everyone argues Hillary should show more personality on the campaign trail. The minute she does, the attacks pour in. Jack, did you like the joke?
Oh, I kind of did. Yeah, I loved it, Morris. I wonder how many takes she had to do to get it right. I bet they practiced that joke for 6 hours, knowing the Clinton campaign. I think it's quite funny, really.
I can't see Hillary practicing her barks. I think one shot's enough. Richard,
I tend to agree. I think one shot is enough. But there is some truth to her statement, right? If you listen to the Republicans very carefully, they spent the last 2 weeks calling Ted Cruz a liar. Donald Trump called him a liar. Then Marco Rubio called him a liar. Jeb Bush is getting ready to call him a liar. John Kasich might do it next week. So she's right. The Republicans, they lie, they steal, they cheat, anything to win.
Time for us to bark our way out of this. Richard Fowler, Democratic strategist, Jack Burkman, Republican strategist, the best political panel on TV. Thanks to you both.
Thanks,
Morris.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Richard.
Jack.